When a man or a woman crosses the threshold of 60, life undergoes a subtle inversion. The external world becomes quieter, and the inner world begins to echo more deeply. It is in this silence that one begins to hear, not always the voice of the divine, nor the melody of serenity, but often the absence. A profound, aching absence. And frequently, that absence is shaped like the voice of a child. Not the child of memory. Not the one we held in our arms. But the grown child, who no longer calls, no longer returns messages, whose gaze has turned away. That turning away is more than indifference. It is exile. To be ignored by one's children after 60 is a wound that pierces through all the defenses we've built. It does not only bruise the emotions, it crushes the myth we have lived. This is not the abandonment of the body, it is the abandonment of meaning. Because we do not raise children only to pass on our name or our blood. We raise them to carry forward our story. And when they turn away, that story is interrupted, cut off, left dangling in the void. You see, the child is not merely a person. The child is the archetype. The child is the vessel of renewal, the continuity of the soul's journey. The child in many ways becomes the mirror into which the parent gazes to see whether their life had value, whether their pain had purpose, whether their sacrifice was seen. But when that mirror goes dark, when the gaze is not returned, the parent is left to confront their reflection alone. That is the forbidden gaze, the look we cast upon our children when they no longer look back. And in that gaze the unconscious stirs. Let us not pretend this pain is light. Let us not diminish it with platitudes such as "they are busy" or "they'll come around." Because while those things may be true on the surface, what erupts beneath the surface is far more profound. It is not about them. It is about us. You feel this, don't you? You who gave without demand. You who carried their fears. You who folded your identity to make space for their dreams. And now, in the autumn of your life, you wonder, did they forget? Did I matter? Was I ever truly seen? These questions are not selfish. They are sacred. They arise not from vanity, but from the soul's need to integrate. Because aging, true aging, is not about decline. It is about completion. And how can a story be completed if the final chapter is silence? We must speak of the archetypal betrayal. In every culture, myths emerge where the young abandon the old. The prince usurps the king. The daughter flees the mother's guidance. The hero leaves the village and forgets the wise elder. These myths are not accidental, they are warnings. They reveal the danger not only of being abandoned, but of becoming bitter when we are. Because bitterness is a poison that seduces the wounded. It whispers, if they do not love you, you are unlovable. If they do not see you, you are invisible. If they do not come back, your life meant nothing. And I must tell you, these are lies. Powerful lies. Ancient lies. But lies nonetheless. You were never meant to be completed by your children. You were never meant to live through them. They are not the authors of your legacy. You are. When your children stop looking at you, it is time to look inward. When your voice is no longer heard, it is time to listen to the voice within. Because here lies the secret that the ego resists. Being ignored is a gateway. Is a portal to the part of you that was waiting all along to be seen, not by them, but by you. This is the moment the ego cracks, and the self begins to emerge. But only if you are brave enough to descend. The descent always begins with loss. The loss of relevance. The loss of being needed. The loss of control. At first we resist. We call. We remind. We ache. But eventually we fall silent. And it is in that silence that the soul speaks. You are not here to be remembered by others. You are here to remember yourself. This is the paradox of aging. We spend decades defining ourselves by relationships, spouse, parent, worker, protector. But after 60, life asks for something else. It asks for integration. Not achievement, not admiration, but integration. And integration begins with grief. Let yourself grieve. Grieve the phone calls that never came. Grieve the birthdays forgotten. Grieve the small betrayals and the great silences. Do not rush past the sorrow. Do not bury it with distractions. Let it speak. Let it breathe. Because buried grief becomes shadow. And shadow, left unseen, becomes destruction. But grief embraced becomes alchemy. It becomes the fire in which the ego burns and the self is revealed. This is the work of the elder. Not to be loved, but to become whole. And sometimes wholeness begins with being unseen. You are not weak because you feel this pain. You are not broken because your child has turned away. You are simply awakening to the part of your soul that was never dependent on anyone's gaze. You are not just a parent. You are a soul in transformation, the mirror of memory. There is something both cruel and beautiful about memory. It does not age with the body. It does not weaken in sync with the bones. Sometimes, in fact, it grows stronger as the world around us fades. The faces become sharper. The echoes clearer. The small moments, the ones we thought forgotten, return with extraordinary detail. A shoe left by the door. A laugh across the hallway. A question they asked you when they were 5, that for some reason now refuses to leave your mind. Why now? Why does the mind summon these fragments when we need them least, or perhaps when we need them most? Because memory is not passive. It is not a drawer we open when we wish. It is alive. And when our children disappear from the present, memory calls them back, but not as they are. As they were. And this, I believe, is the most painful dimension of being ignored by one's children. Not simply their absence, but the tension between what they once were and what they have become. When a child forgets us, they do so from their new vantage point, from their own life, their own pace, their own complexity. But we, the parents, remember them through memory's mirror. And that mirror is lined with emotion and sacrifice and moments they themselves may no longer recall. They walk forward. We remain behind, not physically but emotionally, tracing steps that only we remember. And this creates a dangerous imbalance. Because when you speak to a memory, it always answers. And often, the answer it gives is illusion. Let me explain. Memory, especially when laced with emotion, becomes selective. It preserves the warmth of holding them, but not the ache in your back. It remembers the joy of watching them sleep, but forgets the exhaustion of the day. It becomes idealized. We project not only the past onto the child, but an idealized version of the child onto the present. So when they turn away, we are not merely being ignored by a person, we are being rejected by the ideal we created. This is the root of the hurt. It is not that they no longer call. It is that the image we carry, the child who ran into our arms, who cried when we cried, who called us their whole world, is now gone. Not dead, but evolved, detached, free, and perhaps in some strange way, frightened of how deeply they are remembered. This is why our grief is so particular. Because it is not only for the child we see, it is for the child we held, the child we fed, the child who once needed us so completely. The child who, in needing us, gave us meaning. What happens when the one who gave you meaning no longer needs you? This is the unbearable question, but is also the sacred invitation. Because there is a deeper truth that we, in our grief, must face. We are not meant to be needed forever. We are meant to be loved freely or not at all. And love that is demanded is no longer love. It becomes debt. It becomes manipulation. It becomes shadow. Here the shadow is subtle. It whispers to you. They owe you. They forgot you. They must return. And when they do not, the shadow becomes bitter. But the soul speaks differently. The soul says, you loved them well. You did what you could. And now, it is time to return to yourself. This is the point at which many elders struggle, because they are torn between two mirrors. The mirror of the past, where they still see the innocent child, and the mirror of the present, where they see an adult who has turned away. Neither mirror tells the whole truth. But there is a third mirror, and this mirror belongs to the self. It does not show the child. It does not show the rejection. It shows you, as you are now, in full presence, in full awareness. Not as a role, but as a soul. And this mirror is the one most feared, because it does not reflect stories. It reflects essence. What do you see when you remove the title of parent? What remains when you are no longer needed? If the answer is nothing, then your work has just begun. Because we must now find meaning, not in being remembered, but in remembering who we are beyond the parent. This is the deeper individuation of old age. The first half of life is about building identity through relationships. The second half is about dismantling that identity until only essence remains. What is essence? It is the part of you untouched by your children's absence. It is the flame that burned before they were born, and the one that will burn long after they forget your birthday. It is the still point in your chest that knows, I am not only what I gave. I am not only who I loved. I am. This is the realization that memory, though powerful, must be integrated, not worshipped. Do not become a prisoner of the past. Do not let the golden images of their childhood enslave you. Honor those memories. Smile at them. Let them warm you, but do not let them blind you to the truth of now. And the truth is this: you are still becoming. Even now, especially now. This chapter of your life is not a conclusion, is a deepening, a distillation, a sacred narrowing of focus until what is left is only what is essential. And in this essence there is peace. If you can stop looking only into the mirror of memory and instead turn toward the mirror of becoming, you will begin to see something astonishing. You were never forgotten. You are only being redirected from them to you, and that, I promise you, is a far more faithful path than waiting by the phone. The shadow of expectation. If the first wound is absence, and the second is memory, then the third is expectation. And of the three, expectation is the most treacherous because it often masquerades as love. We tell ourselves that all we wanted was gratitude, or a call, or a moment of recognition. But beneath these desires hides something far more complex. Something shaped not in old age, but in youth. Something passed down, often unconsciously, from parent to child, and from child back to parent. We do not raise children in a vacuum. We raise them within the stories we inherited. Stories of duty, stories of loyalty, stories of reward, stories that whisper, if I sacrifice myself, I will be loved. If I give them everything, they will never leave. If I am a good parent, they will always remember me. But these are not truths. These are contracts. Silent, invisible contracts made between the ego and the future, and like most unspoken contracts, they are broken before they are even understood. And so when our children begin to drift, or worse, disappear, we feel not just pain but betrayal. Because the ego says, I did my part. And now, it demands its return. But the soul does not operate on contracts. The soul operates on freedom. And herein lies the conflict. What we call love was often conditional. What we called sacrifice was often a bargain. What we thought was devotion was sometimes control. This is difficult to accept. I do not say it to condemn, but to liberate. Because while you may have loved your children deeply, and I believe you did, there may also have been expectation woven into that love. And if that expectation remains unconscious, it becomes shadow. And shadow, when denied, does not disappear. It distorts. It poisons. It takes your longing and turns it into resentment. Let us speak honestly. Have you ever thought, after all I did, how can they ignore me? Do they not remember who I was to them? Have they truly forgotten what I gave up? These questions are not evil. They are human. But if they remain unexamined, they become chains. Chains that bind you to a version of yourself that no longer exists, the giver, the savior, the martyr. The role may have ended, but you still carry the mask. And that mask is heavy. If we wish to be free, truly free, we must lay down the masks we wore as parents. Because we are no longer responsible for their journey. We are responsible only for what remains in us. And what remains, more often than not, is the wounded child we once were. You see, many of the expectations we place on our children are echoes of unmet needs from our own childhood. Perhaps you were unseen. And so you made sure your child felt seen, hoping, unconsciously, that they would return the gaze. Perhaps you were abandoned. And so you never left them, hoping they would never leave you. Perhaps you were criticized. And so you praised them endlessly, hoping they would affirm you in return. These are not flaws. These are patterns. And the moment you recognize them, you are no longer their prisoner. You are their witness. This is the power of integration. To say, yes, I long to be loved. Yes, I hope they would stay. Yes, I wanted to matter to them. And, even if they do not return, I still exist. I still have value. I still have voice. This is where expectation dies. And in its place, something astonishing is born. Not bitterness, not indifference, but sovereignty, a kind of quiet dignity that no one can take away, not even your own child. This is not detachment. This is maturity. It is the realization that love is not something you earn back, it is something you become. And when you become it, you no longer need it from anyone else. Let me be clear. You are allowed to wish your children would call. You are allowed to feel sadness when they don't. You are allowed to grieve the distance. But do not let that sadness define you. Let it refine you. Because every unmet expectation is an invitation to turn inward, an invitation to discover the parts of you that were waiting, not for them, but for you. Your tenderness, your vulnerability, your quiet wisdom, your resilience. These are not the things your child was meant to reflect. These are the things your soul came here to remember. And now that the external mirrors have gone silent, now that the reflections have faded, you finally have the space to see yourself as you truly are. Not through the eyes of your children, not through the roles you once played, but through the lens of your deepest truth. You are not just a parent. You are a self in evolution. And evolution is rarely painless. It breaks. It stretches. It burns. But what emerges is authentic. What emerges is yours. This is the shadow of expectation. It darkens what it tries to control. But once brought into the light, it dissolves. And in its place, peace. Not the peace of resolution, but the peace of release. You do not have to be remembered in order to have mattered. You do not have to be seen in order to shine. You do not have to be loved in return to continue loving. This is freedom. And it begins right now. We have walked through absence, memory, and expectation. We have grieved. We have questioned. We have looked into the shadows and sat with the silence. And now we arrive at the place where all true journeys must end. Not with reunion, but with return. Not the return of the child, but the return of the self. There comes a moment, quiet, unmistakable, when you realize that the love you were seeking already lives within you. It was never theirs to give. It was never lost. It was only waiting. Waiting beneath the roles you played. Waiting beneath the longing. Waiting beneath the pain. This is the sacred return, and is not something we do once. It is a rhythm, a breath, a remembering, because you are not a fragment. You are not incomplete. You are a circle, whole, eternal, expanding inward. And even if the voices of your children grow distant, your own voice can rise. Not in protest, but in presence. Let us speak now not of grief, but of grace. The grace that comes when we no longer measure our worth by how others respond. The grace of no longer needing to prove anything to anyone. The grace of being still and knowing, I am. There is a deeper meaning to all of this. The pain of being ignored was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to strip away the illusion that you were defined by another's attention. You are not. You are defined by your awareness, by your courage to feel, by your willingness to sit with the silence and let it speak. And when you listen, you may hear something sacred, something ancient. The voice of your own soul whispering, I have been here the whole time. You were never forgotten. You simply had to come home. And so you return, not bitter, not broken, but whole. And as you return, you discover something extraordinary. You can still love them, even from afar, even without reply. You can still bless them, without needing thanks. You can still walk in peace, even if they never turn back, because the soul does not measure love by outcome. It measures love by alignment. And you, in this very moment, are aligning with a deeper truth than any external recognition could offer. This is your wisdom. This is your dignity. This is your gift. To live the rest of your life, not in the shadow of what was lost, but in the light of what has been found within you. And if one day they return, you will welcome them, not as the one who waited in pain, but as the one who found peace while waiting. And if they do not return, your light will not dim, because it was never lit by them. It was lit by something far more eternal. And that light is yours now. Let it shine. Speak again. Create again. Love again. Not as a parent hoping to be seen, but as a soul who finally sees. This is the sacred return. And if you feel it even now, rising in your chest like a warmth that cannot be named, hold it. It is real. It is you. And it is enough. If these words resonated with something in you, something old, something sacred, something ready to awaken, then you are not alone. You are part of a great pattern, and your journey matters. If this message brought clarity or comfort, I invite you to pass it forward. Like a flame, pass gently from one candle to another. And if you wish to walk further with me, to explore the inner life, the unconscious, and the mysteries of meaning, then I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Not because I need your presence, but because your presence here honors your own path. Leave a like if this voice helped you reconnect with yours. And share this video with someone who may be carrying the same silence. The path of wholeness does not end with understanding. It deepens with every step inward. So keep walking. And when the world is quiet, listen. Your soul is speaking. Always has been.